I created this PDF from my Coda data using just the press of a button. It's probably one of the most wild Coda workflows I've ever developed, and I'm going to show you every single piece of it. From actually gathering the data for this PDF as a quiz, to generating the PDF report and then actually sending that PDF in a Gmail message. This video is probably longer than my usual ones, but stick with me to the end and I guarantee you'll learn more about Coda in 20 minutes than any other video out there. Let's go. All right, so before we get to the whole PDF generation and the more kind of exciting technical pieces, we're gonna look at the Coda Quiz itself. The Coda Quiz is probably one of the coolest public-facing documents I've ever created. There's a lot of tips and tricks in here, so I'm going to show you those now. So first off, the cool thing about the Coda Quiz is that it's published on a custom domain, meaning that nobody has to even have a Coda account to access this, right? You can just go to www.codaquiz.com and you're going to come here and be able to start taking the quiz. So one really, really cool thing about this is that normally this document or this website is in play mode only, aka the changes that I'm making right now aren't gonna save, but we're running some really fancy tricks in the background to allow you to actually save the user's input. So I'll show you that in just a minute. So let's look at how we kind of did some of these tips and tricks. So first off are these nice little buttons that we're using here, right? We're just using these buttons and we're logging the user's choice. Notice that they can unclick as well, and it unclicks that button. Coda allows you to actually take buttons and turn them into a formula. So these buttons conditionally do different things based off what's currently happening in the doc, right? So if, essentially, user has not chosen, then do this. And if they have chosen, then, well, do this instead, right? So that's what I'm doing with those buttons, is using a conditional argument for the action. I'm saying if the item raw score is blank, so if they haven't yet chosen a score, well then modify this rows and modify it to be a 1. All this button is doing is logging the user's score in something called item raw score. All right, so you see that's there. If I press this 2 button, it'll log a 2. If I press that, it'll log a 3. If I unpress that, it unlogs the 3. That's literally all it does. But we've also added this fun visual here as well. So the visual under here, the label itself can be dynamically determined. So it's saying, hey, if the item raw score is 2, then use this hidden Coda formula called color and actually go ahead and create a colored bolded X with a bunch of padding in the middle to just show the user that they've chosen that. So those are just some visual UI tricks that allow us to kind of help this really feel like a quiz. It feels less like a spreadsheet and it really does feel like a quiz. So the next piece about this cool is this page, right? We're cycling through pages rather than just showing a huge long list. We're doing that with something called round. So how we're doing that is we are using this. It's called a round, right? Round 2. If I press next, it goes around 3. If I press next, it goes round 4. So all we did is we just, manually input. We chose which formulas we wanted as a round. We put that information there. And all this button is doing is setting a control value. So we have a control value over here, normally hidden when the user's taking it. But all it is a slider. And that button itself just moves this slider forward. And our filter formula on here basically says, hey, just show me the rows where the round is equal to the slider. So that is working really, really well, right? So the user ends up going through all of these pieces, but eventually what they do is they press this score quiz button. I'm not gonna bore you with all these buttons. Oh yeah, actually I will, because I can fast forward this. All right, and we did it. So now that the user has selected, 1 in every single column, what we're going to do is actually, and this is how we capture the user's inputs, right? Because normally you can't. But what we're doing is we're actually just opening a form. So you'll notice that the formula on this is just open window, which is, hey, go open a link. And we're formatting a very specific link. So what this is it's a Coda form, right? So I'll show you the Coda form is actually inside of a separate document. So I'll show you that separate document first. This is the form that catches the results. So what we have them do is just open a form. It asks for their name, their email, asks for, just fun stuff, how they would rate themselves and how many years they've been using Coda, and that's it. And so what we're doing though is we're logging every single individual choice and logging them to a column. So you'll see here that it has the form link, and then it has logging every single item. So it says list equals 1 and max by equals 2. So you'll notice what I'm essentially doing is inputting into these formulas the user's choice. So you'll see if I go here, form link to open, what we're doing is we're just constructing this. So now you'll notice here that it says list is equal to 1, max by is equal to 2, because I chose those here. If I change this to 5 and I change this to 5, you'll notice that this long form link changes list equals 5 and max by equals 5. So what these are, they're called hidden query parameters. When you're setting up a Coda form, so if I go here, in the edit layout, privacy settings, you can say include hidden columns for URL parameters, which means that the value that I'm catching inside of here is actually going to pass into those columns, and it's a name match. So basically it's going to look for a column called list, and if I have a column called list in my end table, it will fill it with the value of 5. So you'll see here, if I go here, press this page, all it does is it opens up this form, Coda Quiz. It just asks for these pieces, but I'm going to go ahead and copy the URL that we're at right now. If I go ahead and I copied that URL, right, the URL that we're at, all these pieces of information hidden within it. And so that's how we're using a published Coda doc, which you don't have to sign into. There are some different, if you want published formulas, I've had a lot of clients ask for essentially published docs are docs that no one has to sign into, that we can still capture user inputs. This is one of the ways you can do it with a hidden URL parameters for a Coda form. The other way is you can actually use a webhook. This is much more technical and advanced, but if you go to coda.io/gallery and you look for a pack called Coda Webhook, it's actually one that I built, and it has a special formula in it, and that formula is called here, published webhook. It says triggers a Coda automation in a published document. But all that said, if you want to use this to skip the form and just instantly capture users' inputs, it's another way you can capture users' inputs. All right, so that is the Coda Quiz. That is kind of how we designed this. That is how we made it really user-friendly and I think quite beautiful. If you want to go check it out and check it out yourself, you can just go to codaquiz.com. But right now, let's move on. I'm going to show you how I actually capture these results, turn it into a dynamic and beautiful PDF. There's some much more technical Coda stuff coming up, but I think some of the most exciting things I've ever done with a Coda doc. So let's go. All right. So remember, our goal is to generate this dynamic PDF with the user's inputs and information from the quiz and then send it off to them in an email. So I'm going to show you now the document that actually kind of aggregates their scores, generates all this information, and even generates these dynamic images and charts that you see. We're going to do this all through Coda. No really external software. We're using just packs and Coda alone. So what we have here is I have a separate document. You'll notice that it's called Coda Scores from the Coda Quiz. So when a user from the Coda Quiz, right, they press this Score Quiz button and they submit this information, it's all going to flow into this document. We did the two documents mainly for privacy reasons, right? If people are submitting their names and their emails, we don't want to include it in that document for extreme Coda hackers who might hack and be able to open up those email addresses. So we have a separate doc, and where it's going to catch inside of this table. So I'll call this scores are caught here. And all right, I realized that creating scores with the Coda Quiz is really advanced, right? I'm sending through just so much different information to create this PDF that it might be hard to visualize. So I'm going to show you really quickly in a simple way how to create these PDFs with Coda. So for example, I have in document over here, I have a template. You get to define your template, exactly what it looks like. You can brand it, And then you essentially put variables. These are these squiggly braces. This squiggly brace says, hey, put information here, right? Custom message, put a company name, and put a full name. So if I wanted to create this PDF, I'm going to come into Coda. I'm going to insert my document pack. I'm going to add the doc and use my account. And what I do from there then is first I have to match those variables. So let's say company name. Let's say message. And then let's say, what was it? Custom message, full name, and, full name, right? The name of your columns don't matter. It matters how we pass them through. So I'll show you now. We just grab a button. And what you do with that button is you just say packs, document, create PDF, okay? So we're gonna create a PDF. You can just select your template from here. It actually auto pulls it. So if I go to certificate, I'm going to make it active. And then what you do here to send data to document is you press add more additional options. Once you do that, it's going to actually pull the variables from your template. So full name, company name, and custom message. So let's do each of those, full name and company name. And lastly, we've got custom message. What I can do now is for the values that I pass through is reference with the equal sign, the full name. Notice that it's logging in green. So, hey, I'm going to take the full name from this column, right? So if I go full name, and we're going to take the company name. And then lastly, we're going to take the custom message, just called message. All right. Lastly, what we have to do is set a results column because this is going to create a PDF, but unless you tell Coda to log that information, you're going to be lost. So I'm going to say new column, and I'm going to call this my PDF link. What you're going to do next, and you have to do this afterwards, is set this file or this type to a file type. And then we're going to call this create PDF. So let's create one for Coda. Let's create the message is you are such an awesome employee. And let's make the full name John Smith. So what that'll do, we should be able to press this button. Should be able to create a certificate. We can make one for Nike. And we could say you are the best shoe creator. And then we'll do this for Susie Smith. So you'll notice that it's going to grab that information from my Coda table and push it into this PDF link. You'll notice here it is. Here's our PDF for John Smith, for Coda, and that he is such an awesome employee. So that is a simplistic version of what we're doing with your Coda scores. Essentially, we're not just passing through name and email and messages, but we're also passing through these radial graphs and charts that allow us to construct graphs and images. So really exciting. Love this PDF generation from Coda. There's so many different things you can do with it to really automate your time. So hopefully that helps clear it up a bit. All right, so the last thing we need to do now is actually send our email. We do this actually in a really fancy, fun way because we need to send the actual PDF to the individual. So the normal Coda Gmail pack does not include the ability to send PDF attachments, right? So this is the normal Coda Gmail pack, send email. You'll notice it gives you these options, who to send it to, subject, content, and more, but none of these are a file. None of these are a file or a PDF upload. So we can't use the normal Gmail pack. So what instead we're doing is we're actually using a deployed app script. This is some technical coding. I actually go over this entire workflow in another video. So if I go here to my code editor, I have another video called Send Gmails with Attachments, and it actually goes and walks you through this step by step if you're interested in doing that. But I won't get into that now. The point is that essentially we're using this small code snippet to actually grab data from our Coda doc, send an individual an email with a real attached PDF to it. So you'll notice that inside of our button here called Send with Gmail, if I open it up, it's on click, it's a trigger web app. It's a different pack. So it's a pack called AppScript. It's a pack called AppScript, and it's just meant to trigger these Google App Scripts. So you'll see here that what we do is we just send it information, right? So we send it, who are we going to send it to, the subject, the document link itself, and then some other information for the email. So if I press this right now, notice that I put my own just for testing for this video, but if I press this button, it's gonna go ahead and it is going to send a email message to myself. So, shabang, you can see it right there. That is the email that is delivered. We're able to kind of set that body here as well. We set it with some HTML. Hey there, you took the quiz and we ran your results, right? We're sending this through the app script, and that's how we're creating that email and attaching the actual PDF to it. So that is, again, last thing is that is not manually pressed by us, right? That is all via your automation. So right when someone submits that Coda quiz, we go ahead and we come into here and we create a PDF for them. We run an action and we trigger all these different steps that run through, and we send them their information. That's it. That's how we do it. This is, I think, one of the coolest Coda flows that we've worked with. If you have any interest in any of these pieces, I have all the information in the description below. We got links to document, to packs, to Coda. Or if you got any questions, of course, you can hit me up at my email address as well right away. All right, guys, have a good one. Keep being a Coda person. Later.